Salve omnes, welcome to your course overview for Latin 3 at VHS at PWCS. In this video overview, we're going to just quickly cover some of the main highlights of what you can expect in the Latin 3 course. So in this course, we're going to be moving away from the time of the ancients and their writings to those of the medieval writers in medieval times. As you explore the literature from this huge expanse of time, from the time of Julius Caesar to the time of Thomas More, you will examine their perspectives as well as their drive to preserve the Latin language and literature. And it really was the people during the time of, the Middle Ages and the medieval times that really kept Latin alive. And without them, we may have lost many of the works that we still read today. So very quickly, how can I succeed in this course? So this course includes the following elements to help you through: guided vocabulary and grammar lessons that include video tutorials and interactivities. There's also self-check activities in each of the lessons so that you can check your progress in real time. Instructor office hours are 4 to 6 hours per week, where you can schedule time to meet with your instructor for one-on-one help. This is in the fall and spring semesters. When it comes to the summer semester, that's 4 to 6 hours per day. So I'm usually in there just about as much as you are during the week, based on whichever session that you're in. During the fall and spring sessions, we have 2 20 to 30-minute live lessons each week to cover a current grammatical topic. During the summer sessions, this happens every day. There's also Quizlet vocabulary links to help you so that you can study vocabulary on your phone through their app or on your computer. And vocabulary review is something that's really important for language. It's kind of the first step to being able to read a passage, is understanding that vocabulary. So what is expected of me, the student, in order to succeed in the course? You do want to log in daily, regardless of whether you're in the fall, spring, or summer session, even if it's just to check email, grades, view news announcements, and updates. If you are in the fall and spring courses, you really should be in there solidly 3 days a week. But I really prefer people be in there every day for about 45 minutes to an hour. I think that's the best way to stay on top of the assignments and the course. Read through the lessons carefully and take notes as you would in a face-to-face class. Just because you read it doesn't mean that you internalized it. And so this is something that's really important, not just for Latin language courses, but also for courses in general in the online world. You still want to make sure that you're doing the same things that you do in a face-to-face course to help you remember the material. Go back and reread material that you don't understand, and reach out for help if you still need help and don't quite get it. Don't get behind because you're afraid to ask for help. Your VHS instructor, which is usually me, is always there to help you through. And sometimes you just need a quick clarification and you're going to be able to complete the assignment. Be positive. Sometimes we're going to have technical issues. Don't leave things until the last minute when those technical issues can become more frustrating. But you always want to be positive and be proactive in the course. Be organized with your time and meet due dates. Getting behind in the course really does affect people, not just because your grade will go down, but also because you can only take in so much information at once. And you need to be keeping up with those due dates to make sure that you're making progress weekly up until the end of the course. So when we talk about, the Latin 3 course with VHS, we are aligned with the Virginia SOLs. And some of the things that we'll be covering, one of our main topics, is that we're going to comprehend and interpret adapted and authentic Latin texts based on a variety of topics. And so this is pretty broad. The Latin 3 courses across the county, though, in Prince William tend to be more reading intensive. So you will be completing both translation and comprehension assignments to show your ability to read for information. Support through the lessons is given for both vocabulary and grammar for the readings. I do highly encourage, though, that even once you've completed an assignment, a couple days later, go back and reread it and reread the Latin, not the English. That doesn't help us. Reread the Latin and make sure you understand it. Read it aloud, record yourself, and then listen back to it. Those are some easy ways that you can review that are kind of like low on the load in regards to mental capacity. So when we talk about another SOL, is you will increase skills in reading and interpreting Latin orally. So you will be completing pronunciation assignments and you will be completing interpretive reading assignments. So because we are a classical language, our focus is a little different than our modern language counterparts. However, comprehending spoken language is part of acquiring language. And this really will help you to build your understanding of the Latin sentence structure and Latin vocabulary. You will also read Latin aloud in classical pronunciation, and you will submit this all through our LMS, whether it's a video assignment or it's a record audio assignment. You don't need any special tools in order to complete those. You will also be completing composition assignments to use the grammatical structures and the vocabulary that you've learned in context. The next SOL that we cover is that we will examine interrelationships among the perspectives, practices, and products of Roman civilization. In each assignment that you complete where we read a passage, you're going to be reflecting on why reading the works of those historical peoples is important, and examine the importance of these works to us today in contemporary times, as well as to those people in medieval times. Why were they so fascinated with this? What did they hope to learn from ancient writers that they were reading? The student will reinforce and broaden knowledge of connections between Latin and other subject areas. This is something that you'll hear a lot of people talk about when it comes to why take Latin. It's a language that's been spoken and read for over 2,000 years. We can see its influence in such areas such as history, science, law, art, literature, drama. In this course, we're going to be looking to make those connections to the Latin stories and vocabulary that you are learning to areas that are important to us today, and maybe even ones that you're currently studying or have studied in your other classes. The next SOL is that we're going to be strengthening our knowledge of English language, the analysis of complex linguistic and syntactical elements. We are going to be doing the same thing that we've done in Latin 1 and 2. A lot of times we learn our grammar for English through learning another language, and we tend to do that a little more in Latin. We have a little bit of a different focus than our modern language counterparts. So we will continue to do that when we talk about more complex structures such as the subjunctive mood and how to express wishes and desires. We will continue to work with English derivatives so that we can build our English vocabulary and make those connections with the Latin words that are going to help us remember them. You will also discuss why similarities and differences exist within and among cultures. The Roman Empire was huge and expansive. It came in contact with a lot of different cultures and people. Learning about how they connected and interacted with those peoples as Romans, how they were able to have this huge empire and hold on to it for so long. One of the big parts that we'll read about is the Crusades. And this is a picture of the sack of Jerusalem. So how were some of these things that were going on during these later times? Why were there similarities? Why were there differences? And how did that affect interactions among peoples? The student will continue to apply knowledge of the Latin language and Roman culture beyond the classroom setting for recreational, educational, and occupational purposes. As you work through this course, we are going to be exploring audio and video resources from various organizations, educational institutions that are going to broaden our understanding of Romans during this time. You're going to complete research on a variety of topics as you complete culture assignments and projects, and it's going to be important that you cite those sources correctly. And there will be some extra items that you can be able to participate in. They're going to be outside the classroom, but those will be supplemental. But we will be using the internet and other resources for research and really expanding our perspective outside of what's just in this course, and looking at other perspectives of historians and writers of today and past times. And so that's how we're going to be covering all of these SOLs that are given to us from the state of Virginia. So should I take Latin 3? Well, here are some questions to ask yourself. Have you received a C or better in Latin 1 and 2? If you have, most likely you're going to be able to be successful here. Do you feel comfortable with translating and reading for information? This is a reading intensive course. And if you're a little shaky here, you're going to want to look for ways to improve upon that, or really look to go back to previous material and reread Latin to refresh your memory. Do you understand the basics of all 5 noun declensions and verb conjugations? You don't want to still be working on topics such as what's this ending for the first declension, what's the accusative singular, etc. Do you understand the concept of noun cases and the uses that they indicate for the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative, and vocative cases? So those are the main things. You really want to have a strong foundation in those grammatical topics. In regards to Latin 3 in itself, when it comes to the fall or spring semesters, which are 17 weeks, you do want to make sure that you're prepared to work at least 6 to 7 hours a week in the course to complete the lessons thoroughly, go through those self-checks, and complete assignments, take quizzes and tests. Are you able to attend live lessons twice per week? Attending live lessons really does help people to be able to make connections with me as the teacher, with your peers, and with the content in a different way. And so they are really important. If you cannot attend them, you can still watch the recording, but I highly suggest that you let me know times that are good for you, and I always try to find a time that works the best for that particular class. Devote 1 hour a week to review of previously learned vocabulary and rereading Latin passages. This is really important that you can take an hour a week, whether it's on the weekend or 15 minutes a day, to just go back through old vocabulary, old readings, things that are easy, but are really important to acquire language. Okay, so those are just some of my tips. I'm Magister Walsh. I'm the lead instructor for our Latin courses. I hope to see you in Latin 3 with VHS at PWCS. If you have any questions or want to reach out or talk about your specific background, where you're coming from, what school, what textbook you had there, or if this is right for you, please feel free to email me at the address below. You can also find this on our VHS at PWCS website. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer. So for now, valete omnes, and I hope to see you in Latin 3 with VHS.